Hey, what's happening, guys? What's going on YouTube? Good morning. Figured you guys could join me for my morning coffee, and we'd cover another interesting story in terms of advertising, marketing, digital marketing. The UK is set to ban junk food advertising both on television and online. This ban is going to go in place before 9 p.m. So I guess it's obviously targeted to keep junk food advertising from children. Really interesting story. We're going to get into this in a minute. But before we get into that, just wanted to talk a little bit about, I don't know if you guys heard about this. John McAfee apparently Epsteined himself yesterday. I don't think it's any secret. You guys probably know if you watch a channel that I really kind of enjoy conspiracy theories and things like that. So this is kind of interesting. Not sure if you guys have seen the documentary on John McAfee or if you're familiar with his life at all. You know, Definitely wasn't a role model, wasn't necessarily a nice guy, but most definitely a fascinating guy. There's all types of crazy stories of him, doing tons of cocaine at work, drinking 2 bottles of whiskey a day, doing acid at work. The guy lived a crazy life. In a documentary, they talk about how when he was living in the jungles of Belize, he would pay the local woman to come over and sit in a hammock with a hole in it and poop in his mouth. Definitely an interesting character. He kind of got big into crypto towards the end. He was like a pump and dump crypto whale and con man towards the end. I know he was trying to run for president in 2016 and 2020. He was kind of a big conspiracy theorist. But one interesting thing, so he supposedly hung himself in prison in Spain after it was announced that they were going to extradite him back into the U.S. Now, in previous years, he had made comments saying that the U.S. government was coming after him. If he winds up dead, he didn't kill himself. He even got a tattoo on his arm that said "whacked" to kind of back that kind of idea. And I believe he was in prison in October of 2020, but through somebody, he sent out a tweet that said something to the effect of, "Look, I'm happy in here. I have friends. The food is good. If anything happens to me, I didn't Epstein him. I didn't Epstein myself." And he actually said that. And now it winds up turning out he did Epstein himself, or at least that's the story we're given. Now, obviously, could somebody's mental state have changed? If you realize you're getting extradited to the U.S. and you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, would that make you off yourself? Who knows? Potentially. But it is an interesting story. One thing that adds a little bit more kind of interest to this story is he always claimed that he had a dead man switch. Now, if you guys watch movies like Speed or whatever, you know how a guy's got like the bomb detonator in his hand, and if the police wind up shooting him, he dies, his hand lets loose, and the bomb explodes. A dead man switch in terms of like data or technology is essentially kind of the same thing. Either some trusted person has information that they're going to release if anything happens to him, or maybe he has some type of encrypted file, and unless he kind of logs in and checks in with this file every given period of time, this information is going to be released to the public or released to the media or whatever else. So he always claimed that. It'll be interesting to see if that actually winds up happening. To add a little bit more interest to the story, yesterday afternoon or last night after he died, just a big image of the letter Q was posted to his Instagram account. John McAfee was kind of a big conspiracy theorist, a big conspiracy guy. So I think that has something to do with QAnon. Not sure who posted it, if the account was hacked, but it'll be interesting in the coming days to see kind of what comes of that. Maybe we'll kind of do a video on that and touching more on it. But let's talk about this article: UK to ban junk food advertising online and before 9 p.m. on TV from 2023. So this is still about 2 years away from happening. We'll see if it ultimately does wind up happening. As it is pretty much always the case, a lot of these big companies like Kraft and Kellogg's and, all these other companies who make junk food, they have a lot of money. They're very strong lobbyists. And, I'm sure a lot of them will wind up finding a way to get their company or brand or their foods exempted from this. What do you guys think? Is it the government's place to, modify people's behavior, to try to change people's behavior? Is this a good move or a bad move? Here's the problem: when you do stuff like this, there's no clean way of doing it. So the way these laws are currently written, you're probably going to have some unhealthy foods that wind up slipping through the cracks, and you're going to have some healthy foods that wind up being banned. So just for example, one thing is avocados. Avocados are very high in fat, so avocados, according to the way this law is written, you wouldn't be able to advertise avocados, but in reality, avocados are one of the healthiest foods out there. Yeah, they're high in fats, but they're high in healthy fats. Avocados are packed. I love avocados, one of my favorite foods. But avocados are packed with vitamins, minerals, nutrients. I believe it's monosaturated fats, healthy fats. Avocados lower cholesterol, packed with antioxidants. It's one of the healthiest foods out there, but the way these laws are written, these would be banned. Here's another thing. The city of Chicago put like a junk food or sugary drink ban, or not sugary drink ban, put like a junk food tax in place a couple years ago. But here was a weird thing. If a junk food contained flour, it wasn't considered a junk food. So, a candy bar like Snickers would be subject to this tax, but a candy bar like Twix or a candy bar like Kit Kats that contain flour isn't banned. Now, are Kit Kats or Twix any healthier than a Snickers? No, but when you just kind of arbitrarily decide to ban certain foods or certain products, like these are the type of kind of unintended consequences that wind up happening. Here's kind of another stupid thing about this law. So a company like McDonald's, who really sells nothing but unhealthy foods, McDonald's can't advertise unhealthy foods, but they can do like general brand advertising. So, McDonald's can run a commercial of Ronald McDonald and a Hamburglar as long as they don't show Chicken McNuggets. So you're still kind of ingraining this unhealthy brand and these unhealthy foods into the minds of children and kind of getting children hooked young. But, you're not showing junk food. This would kind of be akin to if Camel was allowed to run television commercials of, a cute cartoon character of a camel as long as he wasn't smoking cigarettes and they didn't show or mention cigarettes, right? It's just kind of silly. But let's get into this article. Prohibition of adverts for products high in fat, salt, and sugar could cost broadcasters more than $200 million annually in revenue. And this is going to affect a lot of different industries. This is also going to affect Facebook ads. Obviously, most advertising is run on kind of a bid system. So the less people you have bidding up these ads, in theory, the less ads should cost. So will this make ads cheaper? Probably not. I imagine Facebook and other companies will just make ads cost more because they're losing all these advertisers. The government is poised to announce a ban on junk food advertising online and before 9 p.m. on television from 2023 as Boris Johnson looks to deliver on his pledge to tackle the UK's growing obesity crisis. And again, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Is this a good move? Is this a bad move? Ultimately, I think if somebody grows up in a household where they're eating a lot of processed foods and kind of crap foods, and they don't see these foods on television, is that really going to change their behavior? If you grew up eating fast food and McDonald's and TV dinners, you're probably going to carry on those same eating habits into adulthood, regardless of what you see on television. I don't like this move, but at the same time, one thing I will say is 70% of the population is obese. And when we look at something like what happened this past year with the beer cough, it probably wouldn't have been such an issue. We probably wouldn't have had as many deaths if people were in better health. Again, I don't really think it's the government's place to dictate what people eat, but the government does a lot of things that they shouldn't be able to do, like stopping people from paying rent, seizing, private property from landlords to force them to provide charity for people, locking people down, shutting down small businesses while large corporations continue to operate. None of those things the government should be able to do, but they do. So I'm not surprised that this is happening. The new measure, which will be some of the toughest marketing restrictions in the world, will heavily impact the more than $600 million spent by brands on all food advertising online and TV annually. And I keep going off on these rants, but the government likes to. I do think personally, I would like to see smaller government. I think the government should be involved in our lives and business as little as possible. I will say, I do want to drink clean water. I do want to make sure food and medications that I take are safe and not chock full of poisons and things like that. And I think a lot of people would say, well, it's the government's place to protect us. And, to a limited extent, I think that's true. However, ultimately, what really winds up happening, the government doesn't protect us so much as they allow who gets to harm us. And what I mean by that is, it's no secret corporations are tied up in government. Most people who are in government later wind up going and working for corporations. And if you have enough money to lobby, or I guess another word for that is bribe, politicians, your company, your products are exempt. If you run some type of factory and you want to pollute, well, if you pay enough money to the right people, your company can pollute. So the government isn't protecting us so much as they're gatekeeping who can harm us, in my opinion. The 9 p.m. pre-watershed ban on advertising TV products deemed to be high in fat, salt, and sugar could cost TV broadcasters such as ITV channel for Channel 5 and Sky more than $200 million a year in revenue. The online ad ban would affect all paid for forms of digital marketing, from ads on Facebook to paid search results on Google, text messages, text message promotions, and paid activity on sites such as Instagram and Twitter. It is estimated that more than $400 million is spent on advertising food products online in the UK annually. And this is where things get really interesting. So even as a small business, if you, I don't know, maybe you sell cookies, maybe you sell supplements, but your supplement, has candy chunks in it or is high in fats or calories or whatever else. You're not going to be able to send SMS marketing messages between a certain time. So it'll be interesting to see if, SMS marketing platforms, Facebook, Google, will kind of enforce these themselves, or if it's up to small businesses to know. And what if I'm a USA based company who primarily has US customers, but I get somebody who from the UK who tries to buy a product from me, or people from the UK are on my SMS marketing list or something like that. That's where things will get really interesting. The tough rules, which are expected to be announced as soon as Thursday, follow Johnson changing his view on personal health decisions after his hospitalization with coronavirus last year. The Prime Minister is said to blame his own health issues for contributing to his illness. Overweight people are at greater risk of severe illness or death from COVID. Research has found that 1 in 3 children leaving primary school are overweight or obese, and as are almost 2/3 of adults in England. And you know what? I really like kind of the slippery slope argument when it comes to things like this. Like, yeah, food is a problem and junk food is a problem, but what's also a problem? Kids sitting on their asses playing video games. So should we ban kids from playing video games before 9 p.m.? Should we force PlayStation and Xbox Gold or Xbox Online? Should we force them to not allow people on before 9 p.m.? Should you have to run 2 miles a day before you're allowed to play video games? Like, I think inactivity and not being fit and active is as big of a problem as eating unhealthy food. So, how far are we really going to take this? Let's see. Last year, the government's consultation on proposals to implement a ban estimated that children under 16 were exposed to 15 billion junk food ads online in 2019, compared with 700 million 2 years earlier. However, the new restrictions include a significant number of carve-outs and exemptions, which mean that they will fall short of the total ban proposed last year, which the advertising and broadcasting industry said was too indiscriminate and draconian. For example, brand-only advertising on online and TV will continue to be allowed. This means a company often associated with poor dietary habits, such as McDonald's, will be able to advertise as long as no HFSS products appear. Brands will also be allowed to continue to promote their products on their own websites and social media accounts. So, McDonald's can post cheeseburgers and chicken nuggets on their own account, but they can't do it on paid advertising platforms. This kind of reminds me of what YouTube did with YouTube Kids. So, advertising, data collection, channel notifications, all these things aren't allowed on videos that are deemed to be for children. And you're not allowed to advertise, toys and things like that to kids. But the workaround is you just hire an influencer to play with your toy, and technically it's not an ad, but it is an ad. The government is also to exempt a range of products from inclusion in the ban after the definition of junk food products proposed last year would have meant that the advertising of items including avocados, Marmite, and cream would have been blocked. These include products not considered as traditional junk food, such as honey and jam, but will also cover zero sugar drinks and McDonald's nuggets, which are not nutritionally deemed an HFSS product. Small and medium-sized companies, those with less than 250 employees, will continue to be allowed to advertise junk food products. In addition, the business-to-business market, companies that do not target consumers but are part of the food industry supply chain, will still be allowed to advertise HFSS products. The junk food advertising will still be allowed through audio media such as podcasts and radio, and there will be no restrictions for the out-of-home sector, which includes billboards, poster sites, on buses, and in locations such as railway stations and airports. The list of products in the ban itself will be reviewed every few years, and it looks like that's kind of where the article wraps up. I always like in reading comments. Let's see if we have... No, I don't think we have any comments. Seems like kind of a silly rule to me, right? Like, you're going to wind up having junk foods that slip through the cracks and healthy foods that don't slip through the cracks. Certain companies will still be able to advertise. You'll still be able to advertise in audio form, just not digitally. You can still advertise on billboards. This law seems to be kind of silly and doesn't really seem to accomplish anything. That's my take on it, at least. I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button below, ring the bell, all that good YouTube stuff, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.